After a long 700-kilometer journey, I finally got my hands on this 1980s Lada. It wasn't exactly a smooth ride. There was heavy snow along the way, and when the car finally arrived, it looked like it had seen better days. The entire exterior was covered in dirt and rust, and honestly, it looked like it had been through a lot. But that's part of the charm of these old cars, right? They've got history. The real surprise came when I started looking at it more closely. The cold weather must have done a number on it because some parts of the car literally started falling apart. I found some deep cracks in the bodywork, which tells me it wasn't properly treated before. It's like the cold cracked it open, revealing how much more work needs to be done. There was a huge hole in one spot and a few other places where the metal had just split open. Inside the car wasn't much better. The interior is old, worn out, but not completely hopeless. The seats and dashboard have seen some rough treatment, but the real highlight is the engine. Luckily, the engine seems to be in decent shape. That's the most important part, right? It's got potential. I checked out the battery and it's brand new, still in perfect condition. That's a good sign. Even in this freezing weather, I decided to give it a shot and try to start it up. To my surprise, it fired right up. No issues at all. The engine runs smooth, so at least I know it's not all bad. Now, the car might look a bit rough on the outside, and the interior needs a total makeover, but the engine is strong, and that's what counts. I'm not worried about the lack of power steering either. It'll take some muscle, but that's what makes driving these old cars fun. The horn isn't great though. It's pretty weak. Definitely something to fix. So here's the plan. We're going all in. We're going to strip this car down, get rid of all the old, rusted parts, and restore it to its former glory. We're talking full rebuild. New paint, new trim, and everything in between. The grille is busted, so we'll swap that out with a new one. There's going to be a lot of work ahead, but I'm up for the challenge. Let's get to work and turn this old Lada into something amazing again. It's going to be a lot of work, but I'm excited to bring it back to life. This car may be a little rough around the edges, but with some TLC, it'll be looking good as new before we know it. All right, guys, so when I started tearing apart 100 of these cars earlier, I wasn't really paying much attention to the small details. But after getting everything off, I realized something. At first, I thought the car's floor was supposed to be like this, just kind of sunk in here and there. I noticed the floor had a few dimples, and I figured it was just part of the original design. But then I spotted a hole, and that's when I realized something wasn't right. So I took a closer look underneath, and turns out the floor is far from original. What I'm seeing now isn't the way this car was built. This is aftermarket stuff that was added later. So we're ripping all of it out. No question about it. We need to go back to the basics, starting with the floor. Now, the original carpet wasn't sagging or damaged like it appeared at first. What happened was that they laid a plastic board over the floor, probably thinking it would fix the issue, but it only made things worse. Under that plastic board, I found a massive hole, a hole so big that you can see right through it. The whole thing's completely rotted out. It's beyond repair at this point. Looking closer, I think the previous owner was just trying to prevent themselves from falling through the floor, which is why they put that plastic board in place. But honestly, does that really solve the problem? It's a flimsy fix at best. One wrong move while driving, and you could easily have your leg going straight through the floor. And if you thought that was bad, there's more. I found another massive hole in the same area. The car is literally falling apart underneath. It's like a sinking ship, guys. It's bad. But that's the reality of working on old cars. They always have more problems hiding underneath the surface than you think. Honestly, I don't know what the previous owner was thinking when they decided to keep driving it like this. But lucky for them, they never fell through. But now the whole undercarriage needs to come off. We're talking about taking off all the protective undercoating and really getting in there to see what's going on with the chassis. It's only after stripping everything down that you realize just how bad the frame is. The car's underbody is in terrible condition, and that's going to take some serious work to fix. This car's been through a lot, and now it's time for a full overhaul. Working on these old cars is never easy. You think you fixed one thing, and then you find another problem. It's like peeling an onion. There's always another layer to deal with, but that's part of the fun. You can't be afraid of what you're going to find. It's all about discovering new problems and finding ways to fix them. That's the challenge I'm up for. When there's a problem, I'm the guy who tackles it head on. No backing down. There's no giving up in my dictionary. So here's the plan. We're going full force on this rebuild. First, all 4 doors are coming off. We'll weld up any parts that need reinforcement, patching up the steel where it's weak. It's going to be a lot of welding, grinding, and patching, but that's what makes these old cars special. They've got so much potential if you're willing to put in the work. After taking out all the seats, interior panels, and doors, I realized I wasn't even planning on removing the engine. But now that we've got the car stripped down this far, I figured it's the right time to pull the engine out as well. We'll give it a complete overhaul, clean it up, and perform any necessary repairs. Might as well do everything while we're at it, right? This car might have looked like a lost cause at first, but with a little love and a lot of hard work, we're going to bring it back to life. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, because this rebuild is just getting started, and we've got a long way to go. So, the car still starts up, but to be honest, it's in pretty rough shape overall. It's been through a lot, and while it runs, it's clear that it's seen better days. Now that we've started the repairs, we're going to take the opportunity to do a full cleanup and overhaul. The plan is to clean and restore everything thoroughly before we reassemble it. That's the only way we can be sure it's done right. We're not just giving the engine bay a quick clean, we're stripping everything down to make sure we remove all the dirt and grime, and then we'll repaint it. We're going to restore it to the original red color, but I'll probably make it a little more vibrant so it really stands out and looks sharp. Today, I started by firing up the engine. Now it's still running, which is good, but the condition isn't exactly what I'd call ideal. So we've decided to go all in and do a full engine overhaul. Over the next few days, we're going to clean up all the grease and grime, fix any issues, and get it running as smoothly as possible. The engine's dirty and covered in sludge, but it's not beyond saving. We're going to make sure it works like new. Even though the engine is running, the real problem is the bodywork. It's in pretty bad shape, so we're going to need to do a lot of work on that. To make sure we do the job right, I've decided to take the windshield out. The rubber trim around it has gotten so stiff and brittle from age and the cold weather that it's really hard to remove without damaging anything. At this point, I've stripped the car down completely. Everything's coming apart, and now it's time to dive into the real work, getting the body back into shape. Looking underneath the car, it's clear that the chassis is in rough condition. It's got years of dirt, old oil, and undercoating that's just gunked up over time. So step one is to clean all that out, get rid of the years of accumulated mess, and make sure everything's in good condition before we start fixing it. All right, now it's time to kick it into high gear. We're going to speed up the process, get all the panels welded and repaired, and make this thing solid again. It's not going to be an easy job, but that's what restoration is all about. Taking something old and making it new again. We've got our work cut out for us, but with the right effort and dedication, this car is going to look and run better than it has in years. I know it might seem like we've made a lot of progress, but honestly, we've only tackled about 20% of the bodywork so far. This restoration project is a big job, and it's going to take time, but we're not backing down. We still have plenty of work ahead, so don't go anywhere. The undercarriage of this car, especially around the suspension and wheel wells, has been a real challenge. The rust here is pretty bad, and it's going to take a lot of patience and effort to get it all cleaned up. But we're tackling it step by step, welding and patching as we go. I know watching the process can be a bit exhausting, but keep in mind, I've been working on this for over 10 days now. I get it, it's a lot to take in, but trust me, I'm just as tired as you are watching, if not more. But I'm determined to bring this 80s Lada back to life, no matter how much work it takes. After all that work, I'm finally starting to see some real progress. The undercarriage is slowly but surely taking shape, and we're getting closer to finishing it up. But now comes the hardest part, the interior. Now let me tell you, the inside of this car is all black. Black seats, black dashboard, black steering wheel, you name it. It's all one color, and it feels a little too dark and dull. Personally, I think it needs a little bit of sunshine, something to brighten it up. So I'm thinking of making some changes. I'm considering switching it up with a more vibrant look, something like this design, or maybe like this, or even a combination of both. So I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Which interior design would look best in this car? I'd love to get your feedback, so leave a comment and let me know what direction you think we should go in. Should we stick with a classic look, or should we spice things up with some color and style? I'm open to all your suggestions. Thanks again for all the support you've shown so far. It really means a lot. That's all for today, but don't worry, we're just getting started. Stay tuned for the next update because we're going to keep pushing forward until this car is looking brand new. I know it might seem like we've made a lot of progress, but honestly, we've only tackled about 20% of the bodywork so far. This restoration project is a big job, and it's going to take time, but we're not backing down. We still have plenty of work ahead, so don't go anywhere. The undercarriage of this car, especially around the suspension and wheel wells, has been a real challenge. The rust here is pretty bad, and it's going to take a lot of patience and effort to get it all cleaned up. But we're tackling it step by step, welding and patching as we go. I know watching the process can be a bit exhausting, but keep in mind, I've been working on this for over 10 days now. I get it, it's a lot to take in, but trust me, I'm just as tired as you are watching, if not more. But I'm determined to bring this 80s Lada back to life, no matter how much work it takes. After all that work, I'm finally starting to see some real progress. The undercarriage is slowly but surely taking shape, and we're getting closer to finishing it up. But now comes the hardest part, the interior. Now let me tell you, the inside of this car is all black. Black seats, black dashboard, black steering wheel, you name it. It's all one color, and it feels a little too dark and dull. Personally, I think it needs a little bit of sunshine, something to brighten it up. So I'm thinking of making some changes. I'm considering switching it up with a more vibrant look, something like this design, or maybe like this, or even a combination of both. So I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Which interior design would look best in this car? I'd love to get your feedback, so leave a comment and let me know what direction you think we should go in. Should we stick with a classic look, or should we spice things up with some color and style? I'm open to all your suggestions. Thanks again for all the support you've shown so far. It really means a lot. That's all for today, but don't worry, we're just getting started. Stay tuned for the next update, because we're going to keep pushing forward until this car is looking brand new. So, after a lot of thought, I finally decided to go with the interior style that most of my fans and followers were rooting for. It was clear they wanted something a little more vibrant, so I figured why not give the people what they want? Time to hit the road and find the right leather for the interior. Luckily, in my area, there are tons of furniture shops, and that means a huge selection of leather options. Different colors, textures, you name it. There's no shortage of choices here, so we're going to take our time and pick out something that really suits the car. I spent a good while checking out all the options. Some of the colors were really bold and eye-catching, while others were a little more subtle and classic. After some back and forth, I decided to buy a couple of similar shades that I thought would look great. The leather quality is top-notch, and I'm pretty happy with my choice so far. But now I need your input. Which color do you think would be the best for the car? I've got the leather ready to go, but the final color decision is all yours. With that squared away, it's time to turn our focus back to the car. We're diving into some serious work. First up, I'm going to strip down the engine completely and give it a full rebuild. The car's interior has already been taken apart and painted, but the chassis was a whole other story. Honestly, it was in pretty terrible condition. I had to spend over 10 days just welding and reinforcing the entire frame. It was a lot of work, but at least it's solid now. Once the frame was stable, I removed all the suspension parts, axles, and the rear differential. Those went straight to the sandblaster and got a fresh coat of paint. The underside of the car was covered in years of dirt, grime, and rust. I had to get in there and clean everything up, then apply a rust converter to stop any further corrosion. After that, I slapped on some anti-rust primer, followed by a thick coat of protective paint to keep everything looking fresh and secure. The result looks great. The underside is now properly protected, and it's all ready to handle whatever the road throws at it. While the paint was drying, I didn't sit around doing nothing. I had all the other parts, wheels, suspension components, you name it, sandblasted to remove any lingering rust. Once they were cleaned up, I gave them a fresh coat of paint as well. Now everything's looking sharp and rust-free. Now I've had a lot of people hit me up, asking why I would spend so much money on such a worn-out car. And honestly, I get it. It's not the most glamorous car in the world. But here's the thing, I've already bought it, I've already spent the money, and now it's just a matter of fixing it up the best I can. There's no going back at this point. I guess you could say I'm committed. If there was a regret pill I could take to undo this whole thing, I'd probably laugh about it in my sleep. But there's no turning back now. I've got to finish what I started. And you know what? I'm actually glad I stuck with it. After all the hard work, I'm really happy with how things are turning out. The rust is completely gone, and the car's underside is now looking as good as new. It's amazing what a little elbow grease in time can do. The next step is to reassemble everything. Get the suspension, axles, and all the other parts back in place. One thing I've been waiting on for a while are the new shocks. The old ones were completely shot, and I couldn't just leave them in that state. I ended up spending $400 to get 4 original factory shocks online. It felt like a lot, but trust me, it was worth it. The ride's going to be so much smoother once those are installed. Speaking of wheels, I've got some new ones ready to go, along with fresh tires. However, we're not quite at the point where I can install them yet. For now, I'm putting the old wheels back on so we can continue the rest of the work. Once the paint job is finished, the interior is looking sharp, and everything is back in place, then we'll swap out the old tires for the new ones. That's when it'll all come together and look perfect. In the meantime, while the paint is drying and the parts are getting prepped, I'm pushing forward with the final steps of reassembly. Once everything is sorted, from the suspension to the door panels to the engine, I'll roll the car into my shop and get it ready for the finishing touches. The goal is to make this car look as good as it can while making sure everything under the hood runs smoothly. So with the frame fixed, the rust gone, and the parts being restored, I'm feeling pretty confident about how the project is going. It's a lot of work, but I know it'll be worth it when I finally get to see this car in all its restored glory. When it comes to restoring plastic parts, the process can vary depending on the condition of the parts. While some can be cleaned easily, others, especially those exposed to long-term wear and tear, may have faded or become discolored due to aging. For those parts, we use a plastic restoration solution with gold plating that not only cleans but also restores the original color and shine. Take the small Lada, for example. When we first got the car, the plastic components on both the exterior and interior were severely weathered and faded from years of exposure to the sun and elements. The plastic parts had turned a dull, white color, which is common for vehicles that have been neglected or left out in the sun for a long time. To address this, we applied a specialized plastic restoration solution. This solution uses cutting-edge nano-coating technology that includes UV protection agents. The solution effectively restores the faded plastic by repairing oxidation damage, and it can also be used on leather, giving the entire interior a fresh and renewed look. The results are remarkable. After applying the solution, the plastic parts on the car were significantly improved. They looked shinier, more vibrant, and almost like new. The difference was incredibly noticeable, and this transformation happened across all the plastic components of the car. This plastic restoration solution works wonders not only on older vehicles, but also on newer ones. For instance, the lower areas of SUVs, which are typically exposed to constant rain, dirt, and sun, tend to fade over time. We treated these areas on our car as well, especially the parts that had turned white from years of exposure. We masked off the areas we had treated, then sprayed both the treated and untreated sections with water, wiping them down with a towel to let the surfaces air dry. The results of this test were quite clear. The treated area became darker, shinier, and looked significantly better compared to the untreated section. The untreated part still had that faded, dull appearance, while the treated area gleamed with a fresh, polished look. If you're dealing with similar issues of faded plastic parts in your own car, I highly recommend giving this restoration solution a try. It's a simple but highly effective way to restore the look of your vehicle, especially if it's not something you drive every day. Not only does it work on older cars, but it can make a big difference in keeping newer cars looking like new for longer. Once we completed the exterior plastic restoration, the next step was to focus on the interior. When we got the car, the seats, door panels, and dashboard were all in rough shape. The original interior was heavily worn, and the seats were covered in a plain black leather, which didn't appeal to me. I decided to completely overhaul the interior, transforming it into something much more stylish and visually appealing. I chose a vintage-style blue leather for the seats, door panels, and dashboard. The combination of the deep blue leather with the updated interior style really gave the car a more classic, sophisticated look. I also swapped out the old worn trim strips on the doors for matching blue leather to ensure the entire interior had a cohesive design. After several days of hard work and dedication, all the interior pieces were fully restored and reupholstered. The seats were reupholstered in a luxurious blue leather, the door panels looked fresh and new, and the dashboard had a modern, sleek feel. The result was exactly what I had envisioned, a stunning transformation that truly elevated the look of the car's interior. When I saw the car finished, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of excitement. The restoration exceeded my expectations. The color, the style, the details, all of it came together perfectly, and the car looked beautiful. It was a real joy to see all the effort pay off. But the work wasn't over yet. After finishing the interior, I turned my attention to the car's mechanical components. The suspension in particular needed some serious attention. The ball joints and steering rods were old and worn out, so we replaced them with brand new parts. These parts had been on order for some time, but they finally arrived, and we were ready to install them. Before reinstalling the engine, we made sure that every component was in perfect condition. This included replacing the engine mounts, which had also seen better days. By installing new engine mounts, we ensured that the engine would be securely fastened and running smoothly. Next up, we moved on to the suspension system. The ball joints and steering rods were completely replaced with new ones. The car's handling and performance will be significantly improved with these upgrades, and it's all about ensuring the vehicle is as safe and functional as possible. Finally, we turned our attention to the brakes. The braking system was thoroughly cleaned, maintained, and repaired to ensure optimal performance. A solid brake system is crucial for any car, and we didn't want to leave any stone unturned in making sure the car was in top shape. With all these improvements, restored plastic parts, a revamped interior, upgraded suspension, and a fully serviced braking system, this old Lada is now as good as new. The transformation has been a long process, but the results speak for themselves. If you're looking to restore your car and bring it back to life, taking the time to address every detail, from the interior to the mechanical parts, can truly make a world of difference. After several days of relentless effort, I finally completed the primer coat on the little Lada. The results came out great, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. Now I'm getting ready to finish the paint job. This Lada originally came in a nice red color, which I've always loved. I wanted to keep it as original as possible, so I've decided to go with a metallic red this time. It gives the car a more vibrant, modern look. It really pops now. After over a month of hard work, the full paint job is done, and the car looks amazing in that new color. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Next up, it's time to install the engine. After a couple more days of tweaking, the engine is finally in place. Now we're getting ready to start the car up. Check this out, guys. Look what I got, a brand new front grille for the Lada. I'm beyond excited about this. I managed to find it through a friend overseas, and it looks fantastic. And look at this, brand new taillights. I couldn't believe it when I found these. The plastic wrap is still on them. They're literally brand new, so shiny. With all the exterior and interior parts prepped and ready, it's time to start putting everything together. The new year is almost here, so I'm rushing to get this project finished before the holiday. I'm going to skip chatting today and focus on the work at hand. But don't worry, my journey with this old car isn't over. This is just the beginning. That's all for today.